Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be planting my potatoes, which I've been holding off on doing for a few weeks now because we've been having some cold nights, but things are improving quite a lot at the moment. Temperatures are on the way up. As you can see, it's a lovely sunny day and temperatures are hitting almost 20 degrees Celsius this week, so good week to get the potatoes planted. So I'm going to be going over how I grow my potatoes. I'm growing them in these 30-litre buckets here, which are quite good for growing potatoes in. I've grown them in these now for a good few years and I've had some good results doing it. But I'm going to go through with you what I use to fill them up, how I plant them in the buckets, why I do this, and also some other bits of information about growing potatoes as well for the new gardeners. If you're new to growing potatoes and you're not too sure whether to grow them in raised beds, in the ground, or in containers like me, there's lots of information in this video which hopefully I can help you with. So firstly, why do I grow potatoes in containers? Well, quite a few reasons actually. Number one, I end up with very clean potatoes compared to growing them in the ground. When I was growing them in the ground, I had the problem with heavy clay soil, so the potatoes were rotting in the ground because it was too wet. I also had a lot of problem with bug damage as well, like slugs and wireworm as well. My potatoes were getting eaten by everything. I would dig a potato up and it would just have loads of holes in, and that was very frustrating. But when I started growing them in containers, I didn't have any of this. Well, I did have a little bit, very minimal though, but for the most part my potatoes were much cleaner. I've also got better drainage as well. These containers do drain well. They can dry out pretty fast though, and that's one negative, but if you keep on top of watering and apply a mulch on top, which I'll go through afterwards, you can make things much easier with watering. You've got flexibility as well early in the growing season. If you've got a greenhouse or a polytunnel and you are forecast of frost, you can actually move the container into the greenhouse to protect them from the frost. You've got that flexibility, and also you can actually leave them in the greenhouse if you want and give them a head start, so you can get a few weeks head start with growth, and the potatoes will fill the entire bucket and make the most use of all the fertilizers and all the nutrients in that compost that's in there, so nothing is going to be wasted. And finally, it's just much easier. There's no need to be digging in the ground or digging inside the raised beds to get the potatoes out, which quite often I was missing potatoes in the ground. It's almost impossible to get every single potato out, and I found that the next year I was finding potatoes sprouting all over the place. But if you're doing them in these buckets, you can just tip the whole lot out and harvest all the potatoes and you won't miss any. So those are just a few reasons why I grow potatoes in buckets. It's my preferred option. So what materials am I using to grow potatoes in these buckets? Well, I'm using a mixture of well-rotted horse manure. I'm using some compost. I've got Grow More here, which is a good compost. It's not peat-free. I don't really like the peat-free compost. I found that they're not very good. Until somebody brings out a good peat-free option that holds moisture well and is a good quality, I will be using peat composts for the time being. It's up to you to make that choice yourself if you want to use peat-free or not, but I prefer the peat composts for the time being. I'm also using bloodfish and bone in my buckets as well as a natural fertiliser, and I'm also going to be using Vitax potato fertiliser as well. So we've got well-rotted horse manure, compost that's a good quality, potato fertiliser and bloodfish and bone, and that should provide lots of nutrients for the potatoes. They are relatively easy to grow and hassle-free, but they do require quite a lot of nutrients. They are heavy feeders, potatoes, and to get the best crop, if you want massive potatoes, then giving them all the nutrients they need is necessary really, it's vital. Here are our potatoes, and I've let them chit now for a good couple of months actually, and they've got some quite decent chits on there now. They're about 1/2 inch in size, which is ideal. Chitting your potatoes is basically just the process of leaving your potatoes. When you get them from the garden centre, take them out of the bag, leave them in a tray. Some people like to use egg cartons for this, and just leave them somewhere out of direct sunlight, in somewhere that's relatively cool, for them to start producing these sprouts. And this is said to give them a good few weeks head start, as opposed to just sticking the potato in the ground without doing this. Now with potatoes, you've got loads of different varieties to choose from, many more options than what you can get in the supermarket. But there are actually 3 main types of potato to grow. You've got your first earlies, your second earlies, and you've got your main crop potatoes. Your first and second early potatoes take much less time to grow and produce a crop, although they do produce a smaller crop. And these are usually grown for your new potatoes, and they take around 12 to 14 weeks to produce a crop, although it does depend on the weather conditions and other factors as well. With your main crop potatoes, these take much longer to mature and produce a crop, around 15 to 20 weeks, but they do produce a much bigger crop. These are the potatoes which give you your massive potatoes for jacket potatoes and things like that, your really big ones. Now with the first and second early potatoes, they grow much quicker, but they take up less room as well, and they do require less nutrients too. So because they take up less room, I actually plant 4 of them in one of these 30-litre containers, because they grow on a single level, and I'll actually plant 2 on the bottom of the container and then 2 further up as well, which I'll show you in a moment. But with the main crop potatoes, because they grow for much longer, require much more space, and also require more nutrients as well, I will plant 2 in a 30-litre container instead. These will grow on multiple levels and they will fill the entire container up as well. Okay, so we've got our 30-litre bucket there with some well-aged horse manure on the bottom there. I do this for the nutrients, but I also do it to help fill the containers up a bit as well, because if I were to fill these up with just compost, it would be very expensive. Although it is an investment for the future. You know, when you've got compost, you've got it forever. You can put them on your beds, you can reuse the compost next year, so long as you add nutrients to it, you know, organic fertilizers and things like that, and if you've got no disease as well. But you know, it is a substantial cost initially. What we're doing here is we're planting our early potatoes. I'm not growing first earlies, but I am growing second earlies. The variety which I've got is Kestrel, which are a really nice variety with purple eyes, a favourite of mine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 4 in this bucket here, because like I said, they grow on a single level, and if I were to just put 2 in here, there would be lots of space wasted in here and nutrients wasted as well. I really want to get the most out of these containers. So you don't have to use horse manure, but I like to use it sometimes with growing my potatoes, so long as it's not fresh. So I'm going to add a bit of this compost in there like that. So I've filled that up around 1/3 full. I'm going to get some bloodfish and bone, good sprinkle of that in there. I'm going to get some of my Vitax potato fertiliser and good sprinkle of that as well. And then I'm going to get my 2 potatoes. I'm going to face them with the chits facing up if I can. I'm going to stick them in the bottom just like that. You can see that. And then some more compost on top of that. I'm going to remember where I stuck them as well. I stuck them here. I'm going to keep that in mind, because when I plant the next 2, they're going to be on the alternate side. A bit more compost in there like that. A little bit more bloodfish and bone. A little bit more of the potato fertiliser. Mix it in like that. And then 2 more potatoes, but on the other side like that. And then some more compost to finish. And maybe a little bit more bloodfish and bone for the top, and again a little bit of potato fertiliser like that. And these should be ready in around about 3 months-ish. I like to let these get as big as they can. As soon as the foliage starts to die back and go yellow, that is a sign that the potatoes have reached maturity. Others use flowers as an indicator, usually when they've finished flowering and then the foliage starts to die off, that's an indicator that they're ready. Or you can pick them when they just start flowering, which will give you new potatoes if you want to do that. Some people pick the flowers off to focus the plant's energy onto producing the potatoes. So that's the early potatoes there. Next I'm going to show you how I do a main crop potato. Okay, so with the main crop potatoes, a little bit different this time. The varieties which I'm growing, by the way, are Maris Piper and Cara. I actually saved some of the potatoes from last year, which I'm planting again. Lovely varieties. So I've got my horse manure on the bottom there again, just filling the bottom third. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to plant 2 of the potatoes instead of 4. I'm going to just put some of this compost in there like that, the bottom there. I'm going to add a good bit of bloodfish and bone and some of your Vitax potato fertiliser as well. Mix that in nice and good. Then I've got my 2 main crop potatoes, Maris Piper. I'm going to put them in the bottom like that. Just going to sink them into the horse manure and compost like that. I'm going to plant them quite deep because what's going to happen is as the stems grow up through the compost, the longer that stem is, the more space there is for potatoes to grow, because the stem of the potato plant will actually start to send out side shoots or stolons or roots, whatever you want to call them, but these will bear more potatoes. So we're going to bury them quite deep, a bit more compost in there like that, a little bit more bloodfish and bone, a bit more potato fertiliser, and I'm going to leave the compost a few inches from the top of the container. I'm going to put a bit more bloodfish and bone in there like that, just on the top. Mix that in like that. Okay, so I've left it about 5 or 6 inches from the top of the container there, and in a few weeks time they'll start to emerge, and then once the potatoes grow past the wall of the container, I will then add more compost, and what will happen is the stems of the potato will send out side shoots which will bear more potatoes. So we're planting them quite deep, and we're going to put even more compost in there once they start to grow. We're going to give the potatoes a good water as well. We're having some dry weather at the moment for at least another week, so these will benefit from a good water. And speaking of watering, these containers can dry out pretty fast. I mean, that's one reason why I put horse manure on the bottom actually, because that will help hold some of the moisture in there. I'm also leaving the containers on top of these wood chips as well, wood chips underneath here, because the wood chips will hold moisture as well and will help keep some of the moisture in the containers as well. And another thing which I like to do with my potatoes is apply a mulch. You can use many different things as a mulch. Grass clippings, straw, wood chips, lots of different things, but this will really help hold in the moisture. I use straw, but what I'll do is I'll do that after I've put more compost in here, because it really does help with watering actually. You'll find that you're watering half as much compared to just leaving the bare soil like that, because what happens is when the water evaporates, it gets caught underneath the straw. It creates like a barrier. It actually condensates underneath the straw and then just drops back down into the soil again, thus reducing loss through evaporation. So yeah, containers, mulch is pretty necessary in my opinion. And you can also use the mulch to protect young shoots as well. If you've got a frost forecast, you can just cover the shoots with the straw or whatever you're using as your mulch. or alternatively just cover the young shoots with a bit of compost as well, just earth it up and protect them young shoots. If your potatoes do get caught out by a spring frost though, don't worry, because they will bounce back. I got caught out a few years ago with potatoes, and we had quite a hard frost in April, and my potatoes were quite high actually. They were about 12 inches tall. It completely knocked them down to the ground, but within a few weeks they started growing back again. So yeah, potatoes can recover from frosts in the spring quite fine. You just might get a crop a couple of weeks later than normal. And when I know that the main crop potatoes are ready to harvest, I'll actually cut the foliage down to the soil level, leave them for a week or two to let the skins harden. I'll then harvest them, leave them out in the sun for a few hours whilst I'm doing my jobs around the allotment, just to let them dry off a little bit, and then I'll store them somewhere cool and dark like the shed. So that's how I grow my potatoes in containers. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you think I've missed. And if you found this video useful, remember to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to see more videos like this in the future. That's all for now guys. Happy gardening and stay safe.